work out a lot, and I kind of want to get into the whole gym type massage thing and venture off from there. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Cool. So now you have an idea where we're starting, right?
Yeah.
So we already have a scattering of ideas of how we're going to use this, but all very good. Okay, so now we're going to jump into anatomy, chapter 1 of essentials, the basics of the body, because we deal with the body all day long. I know you've been around one for a little bit of your life, right? So we're going to get to know the inside of the body a little bit better, and then a little bit more about how we differentiate too. And there's a wide spectrum of bodies out there. Okay, so mainly what I'll do, I'll guide you through the chapter. Key points, I will always cover quiz subjects, okay? The main points that you need to get from the chapter. So if I say that's important, it's probably a test question, okay? So you may want to highlight that, make a note of it. You do not need to highlight the entire chapter. Please don't do that. You'll have your whole life in the book all the time. And then you still might not do a good job because you forgot what were the key points. I've seen that happen before. I've had students copying the chapter. Don't do that. You can turn in your assignments. But you already have the chapter. It's right here. Oh, copy it. Okay. Also, I'll mention this throughout. Just because I don't ask you something does not mean your licensing exam will not. So we will be reviewing stuff. I try to cover everything thoroughly, but I try not to make your life harder than it needs to be. I do not make you memorize the nerves that go with each muscle. Will you maybe, possibly two of you have one question on your licensing exam? Maybe, but you can still pass without memorizing all that. So I don't force you. It's there, you'll see it. I'm not gonna ask you that, okay? The main big ones, vagus nerve, sciatic nerve, stuff like that, yes. But I'm not having you, spend weekends studying nerve number, what does what and where and how many muscles, okay? So hopefully that lets you a little bit feel better. Okay, so what is anatomy? It is the study of the structures of the body, the physical parts of the body, okay? You do need to know these two, okay? Anatomy and physiology. Physiology is the functioning of the body parts, okay? So understand that, and then it breaks it down into smaller, on page 4, categories. Literally, anatomy means to cut apart. So we're not doing that in this class, but if you had an anatomy class, you may have dissected something. Okay, so we're going to be looking piece by piece at the body and how it works together, because homeostasis is our goal as massage therapists. Okay, so we have developmental, which is how we develop or change throughout the life cycle of our organism. Gross anatomy is things that we can see easily with our eye. Regional anatomy is different areas of the body, those structures in that area. Whether it's the shoulder, cuff, as you've probably heard, all those things in the shoulder area. Systemic anatomy, whole body systems, digestive system, reproductive system, okay, lymphatic system, immune system. So all those parts that make up that system. And then surface anatomy. This is the things of the internal organs as they're related to the skin that is over them. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. Because we deal with the skin mostly, directly, indirectly affect a whole lot of the rest of the body, as you'll learn through this program. Okay. Physiology, that's the way our body works. Okay, so you basically, that section, those key points, you just need to be able to basically have an idea of what it's talking about. Okay, so physiology, how the body works. We can look at when it's dysfunctional, which is pathophysiology. Okay, the organizational physiology, that's how the body's organized. Okay, in different levels. And then systemic, of course, you're studying cardiovascular system or something like that. Those are not that important. All right, structure and function. Again, the structure of the body is, and the function, somebody else is. Somebody. All right, yeah, you're gonna talk, everyone's gonna talk in there every time. Okay. And when I throw out bonus points, then everybody's trying to take it. All right. Homeostasis, I mentioned that already. This is what we as massage therapists try to assist our patients or clients to reach faster and easier. It's the condition, the environment that the body wants to be in. It doesn't want to have pain. It doesn't want to have extremes. It's always trying to maintain a certain temperature. It's trying to maintain a certain fluid level. Okay, that is the idea. It does not want to maintain a stress level. And if we have stress constantly, we're going to have dysfunction. Pathologies result. So, do we help people deal with symptoms of pathology? Yes. Can we, with a regimen, assist their body in dealing with stress better so that those symptoms reduce? Yes, we can. And you're going to learn all about that and how that interrelates in this program. Okay, so homeostasis will come up over and over again. Yin and yang. This is a more Eastern. Most of this is we're going to talk about Western, but we are going to talk about Eastern as well. Our program kind of focuses on MLEX prep. It's the easier of your two choices to get licensed. The National Certification Exam has Eastern modality section to the test. So you have to memorize your meridians, your chakras, all the energy in the body, all the organs and what time of day they relate to and all that stuff. So we will see that and cover it. If you think you're going to go in a more Eastern way, you can spend as much time on it as you want. Am I going to have a quiz on just Eastern stuff? No. Will I have a few questions? Yes. So, just putting that out there. Does anyone want to memorize all that stuff? Plans to use it every day in your work? Okay. Let's check. All right, so we've all heard of muscles, right? Can one muscle work by itself and accomplish a lot? Can one muscle cause a lot of conflict, pain, and discomfort, and no homeostasis in the body? Yes, it can, right? Bummed your knee, now your hip's hurting, then your ankle's hurting, now your back's hurting. It traveled because you started limping, and your body doesn't want to walk that way. So those patterns, we can help find that balance. So, we have groups of muscles that work together. They cause the movement of the skeletal system. It's a pulley system. So when one shortens and tightens and contracts, there's some one or more that's lengthening, relaxing, allowing that movement to happen in a controlled manner. That way we look okay moving and not like a cartoon, flimsy thing moving around. So the concept of yin and yang is for everything, there's an opposite to keep a balance. So if you have a little bit of heat, there's a little bit of coolness somewhere. If you have, who has another example? There's many examples of opposites that exist in the world as well as in our body? Can anybody think of one?
Men and women.
Okay, yes, I hadn't heard that one, but yes, very true.
Good and evil.
Uh-huh, yeah, good. There's a list, a table 1-1 with several, right? Day, night, the sun and the moon, fire and water, right? Dry or wet, same kind of concept. So, soft and hard. How do you know something's hard? Because you have something soft, you know what that feels like, okay? Who has a hard muscle in their body right now that they would like softened? Okay. You guys can just get massaging. You don't have to receive. So you need to be in the front with us all that. All right. So, but the relationships of opposites creates a wholeness. This is a concept that we can understand in both Eastern and Western thinking. Western wants to explain it scientifically with a reason for a cause and effect. Eastern accepts it more naturally and more with nature. But they both end up usually agreeing to some extent. And we'll see that on several levels as we keep going. All right, so characteristics of life. So if we're alive, we need to have some kind of boundaries, internal and external environment. What is the borderline of us and our external environment? Our lovely skin, right? It keeps out organisms from getting in pretty well. And that allows us to stay alive. It also monitors our temperature, doesn't let us get too hot or cold without attempting to rectify the situation. It allows movement. Life responds to stimuli. Even if you don't know what it is, if something is sharp, you immediately move away from it. Okay, conductivity, energy movement, metabolism. This is reactions that take place within the body, using and giving and producing or changing energy in some way. Growth, hopefully in a normal way, whether it's replication or actually changing the size of the organism. Respiration, the exchange of gases that happens in our respiratory system to allow life, nutrients to be transpired into the blood system. Digestion, how we break down food for energy. Absorption of nutrients and movement of those nutrients. Secretion, accretion, circulation, reproduction. Okay. Also, I already covered that. Those are not super important. Okay, so how is our body organized? The structure or anatomy of the body. We're going to go from the small level to big. Okay, so we see patterns of dysfunction that happen in a kind of logical progression. Disease usually starts at a very basic level, and if we leave it there, it's going to get more complex, right? Just like we started with one problem if we hurt our knee, we didn't address it, it has spread and become a more complex issue where our hip and spine are now affected. And you will see that very commonly, people walking in like that. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's been a year or more, and they're looking for help. Pill popping is not the answer. It's a wet Band-Aid for the situation. Okay, so chemical level first. We have chemical properties. We're talking about on a small level, right? How we react, substances react to a change. And then physical is things that we can identify, taste, color, texture, things of that nature. So salt could be both, right? We can use it to preserve food. It attracts water in the drying process. That's why they put salt when they dry food. It attracts the water out. But we can also immediately identify salt by taste. We might by sight, we might choose something that looks similar like sugar until we taste it, and then we know exactly what it is. Okay, atoms. It's a small particle of an element. That's important. And an element is a substance that just has one type of atom. And of course, you probably remember these have a positive, a negative, and neutral particles called protons, neutrons, and electrons. Molecules have a combination of multiple atoms. You have to have at least two that can exist independently without losing their properties and becoming something else. Okay, a molecule. And a compound can be formed from molecules of different types of atoms. Oh, and these can be in states of solid, liquid, and gas. Now we're going to cover bonds briefly. No, this is not a major factor, okay? So if you don't like this section, don't worry about it. We're just going to go over it. Okay, so there's chemical bonds. Ionic covalent and polar covalent. An ionic bond is, okay, the outer shell of the atom, if it doesn't react to something else because it's complete and full. Okay, it's called inert. It's not going to react. It doesn't need any help from anybody else. It's fine all by itself. If it is not full, then it will react to other chemicals because they are selfish and they're trying to complete themselves. That's the idea. So ionic bonds, you can gain and lose them. They attract each other. Think of magnets, right? Negative and positive attract each other because that stabilizes them. They want to be stable so they don't have to bother their neighbor for a cup of sugar, right? They want to be fine by themselves. So they'll help each other out. If you're negative and I'm positive, let's get together so we can stay stable. Okay? Negatively charged molecules that are soluble, that can dissolve in water, they're called electrolytes. I'm sure you've heard that term before. Okay? Covalent bond is when two or more atoms share electrons, and this is the most stable type of bond. So that would be one that the body likes or doesn't like. What do you think? Does our body like to be stable or no?
Yeah.
Right. No trick question. If you like to be unstable, we'll talk about that after class. Independently. Okay. All right. Polar covalent bonds. They are neutral. They have the same number of protons and electrons, and they're neutral, so same positive and negative charged electrons within them. A very strong attraction results because they're positive and negative attracting each other to different sides of the molecule. And that when it happens in water molecules, that's called hydrogen bonding. So they act really like magnets, very strong magnets. Okay. All right, moving on. DNA and RNA, you've probably heard of these guys before. Hydrogen bonds help create things such as DNA and RNA. There's a box on page 8 that covers some information about that. Am I going to test you on that? No. If you like that information, study your heart out. Okay, RNA is a messenger. DNA is for building life. That's all you need to know. Which one's messenger, which one is the building block of life. And that might not be new information. Anyway, so that's what the bonds look like. You can say that if you want. Again, I'm not going to have a question that looks like that on your test. Okay, so metabolism. We all want a great one, right? We want it to work for us. Okay, well, energy, what is that? The ability to work, the ability to do something. If you have no energy, you're not moving quick. You might not be moving at all. So, and the ability to make a change in our structure of something is what is called work in the anatomical world, okay? Which that makes sense, right? The more movement and change you see happening, they're doing more work, right? Do we want to build a house from scratch? I don't. It's too much work. I'll clean up the one that's already made. I'll do that. Okay? So the ability to make a change in the physical structure of matter is what is called work. All right, now we have anabolism and catabolism. What is that? Anabolism is the reaction to use energy to build complex molecules. So it uses energy as they join them together. Anabolism. The other one, catabolism, is releasing or breaking down energy. Okay, so releasing energy is the C word. Joining it together is the A. Okay, I don't know if it's two sides coming together, makes the A shape, whatever makes your brain click to remember which is which. Catastrophe, you're having a breakdown, right? Catabolism, maybe that helps. Whatever you think of something that clicks in your brain, just shout it out. It might help somebody else get the answer right on the quiz, right? Everybody's brain clicks differently. All right, so sometimes we'll say something and half the class, that doesn't make any sense. But if it helps one person, great. Okay, next, enzymes and alkalinity. You do put a star or something by enzymes, you do need to know what they are. They speed up those reactions, whether it's breaking down or building up. Okay, that's at the top of page 10. All right, alkalinity. If you look at this chart, you can see that on average, our body is about 7.4, just a little bit alkaline. Some other liquids there that we may consume or not are either going to be more acidic or more of a base, more of the have more alkalinity. So we got apple juice, black coffee. If we have people that are living on coffee, then you're going to be a little bit more acidic than the average human blood, right? The more you intake, if a slight, it's not going to make it be a 6, but it's going to be just slightly more acidic. And the body likes to be a little bit more alkaline. So we can see where those little adjustments the body's going to try to get back to, what's the word? Homeostasis. All right. See, you already got one of your questions right on your quiz. All right. So the combinations, body fluids are combinations of a lot of things. But in general, we want to be close to neutral. Human blood likes to be close to neutral. So distilled water is exactly neutral. So do you think drinking distilled water is a good idea? Probably. Maybe.
Yes.
Probably. So you may drink 2 cups of coffee and 2 bottles of distilled water and think, hey, I just evened it out. All right. So, inorganic and organic compounds. Organic compounds have carbon and hydrogen atoms. Most of the food that we eat are organic compounds. They have nutrients in them. Okay. And then nucleic acids, they're at the top of 11. That is a major component that conveys our genetic information when we reproduce. And so it has DNA and RNA in there. Okay, that's important. Next, we're talking about organelles. So, organelles are the basic structures that you find within cells. So we're going to have a lot of different types. Each one has a specific function for the cell. So first let's talk about the outside of the cell, the membrane. Just like we have skin on the outside of our organism, we have a membrane on the outside of each cell. So it's called plasma membrane or cell membrane. That's AKA, it's interchangeable. Know that just in case your question says plasma membrane and you forgot that it is just the outside boundary of the cell, okay? So it is made of phospholipid bilayer with carbs, proteins, and lipids. And it doesn't allow substances to pass through. It's selective in that, so it's called impermeable. In order to transport substances across that membrane without using any energy, that's called passive transport. So if you're passive, you're just allowing the stuff to happen, that's passive transport. Active requires energy. Okay? So let's talk about the different types of passive transports. There's diffusion, osmosis, filtration. Those are probably the main ones. You've probably heard of those before. Diffusion happens passively because it goes from a high concentration to a lower free field with nothing in it. Okay? Osmosis is when it's going from a low concentration to a higher concentration. So they're the opposite of each other. Filtration is just based on hydrostatic pressure, forcing water across the membrane. Okay? And the kidneys can play a role in that. Carrier-mediated transport, this fourth one. This is different proteins bind to carry, to allow them to go through the membrane. And this can be endo or exo. So it's moving inside the cell, endo, exiting the cell, going outside. Hopefully that makes sense. So you remember which is which. Inside is endo, exo, it's exiting, going outside. Vesicular transport, the last form of passive, is when there are little sacs that form in folds that surround a substance on the membrane and allow it in. And then we have active transport. This requires energy, and it has to be in the form of ATP. And we use ion pumps for that. You do need put a star around that, okay? Active transports requires energy in the form of ATP. Cells that are negative inside and positive outside, the difference in their charges, that's called transmembrane potential, the potential to be able to move substances using those ionic pumps with active transport processes. Okay, but the key is active requires energy. And that energy that cells love to use is called, someone besides Connor is awake, right? Tiffany? What's it called? ATP. You can see that one a lot too. Homeostasis, ATP. Alright, cytoplasm. This is what is inside the cell membrane. So the inside of the cell is cytoplasm. Some of it's fluid. It's called intracellular fluid, meaning inside the cell fluid. That's what that means. AKA cytosol. You do need to understand that. Know Cytosol is the fluid inside the cell. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated ICF, intracellular fluid. And this has your proteins, which give the energy to spark processes inside the cell. There we go. Okay. Endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short. This is where proteins are made. That's really the only thing you need to know. They're the protein producers. Golgi apparatus. They package proteins and some carbs to distribute them around the cell. Lysosomes, they're kind of like the cell's digestive system. They break down things. Microvilli, small fingular projections on the outside to increase its surface area. Right? This has more surface area than a flat line to be able to absorb things, nutrients from outside the cell and bring it in. Mitochondria, they produce the all-important ATP so that the cell can have energy to use and do all of the other functions in the first place. Okay, so mitochondria produces energy. Microvilli, finger-like projections. Golgi apparatus processes and packages the protein. The ER is where the proteins are mainly made. Cytoplasm is the yes. Well, is it outside or inside?
Inside.
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 The membrane is the outside. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I want to hear it correctly, but I'm not sure. Okay. Better to get it wrong now. Okay. And then ribosomes. They are the most. There's more ribosomes than anything else, and this is where amino acids are put together to make other proteins. It's where those are the building blocks of protein. This is where it's put together in the ribosomes. Nucleus controls what's happening in the cell, whether it's reproducing itself or anything else. It controls what's happening. It's the traffic police director, chief of staff, all that stuff. The nucleus. Okay, so at the cellular level, the cell is the basic unit of an organism, including our organism. And the cell's properties reflect the life characteristics of life. So if it has a lot of energy, it can do a lot of things. It's a healthy cell. We have a lot of unhealthy cells. We're not going to appear healthy ourselves, or it won't take too long before we notice you look pale, your hair is thinning, so, something. You feel sluggish. So the cell is where we start inside with either health or lack of. Okay, so cell metabolism, not there yet. I think I have a slide for that. But anyway, the life cycle of a cell, its metabolism, whether it's building up or breaking down, there are those words again, catabolism and anabolism. And it can either decide to divide itself and create another cell. This is called interphase if it's growing, and mitosis if it's reproducing. You probably heard that in a science class before. Process of mitosis, and those little steps that it goes through to make another version of itself. Okay, if the cell gets smaller, it is atrophying. Okay, it's like if you have muscle atrophy, your muscles getting weaker, it's getting smaller. The cell's doing the same, that's where that word comes from. If it's increasing in size, it's called hypertrophy. I didn't get that word right. But anyway. Hypertrophy. It's not saying it tonight. Alright. But I'll get one harder than that later, watch. Okay, so increase is hyper, atrophy, decrease. And differentiation is the ability of the cell to adapt for a special duty. So after a new copy of the cell is made, if it becomes a stomach cell, it's going to specialize in producing acid to break down food. Whereas if it becomes a lung cell, it's going to become specialized in transferring gases. Okay, does that make sense? Anyone have a question so far? Okay. Tissue level is next. Whenever we have a group of cells that are specialized for the same special function, they create tissue. That makes sense, right? You want all lung cells together. You don't want them partying out with the toe cells, right? Don't want you to do any good when you go to try to breathe. Okay, so they come together and form tissue that's specialized for the same purpose. Now we have different types of tissue: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous, found at the bottom of 13. Okay, and then we're going to talk about each one right now. Epithelial tissue, these cover and protect either the outer surface of the body or they line the inside of structures. So you have a stomach lining, right? You have cavities surrounding your lungs. You have cavities surrounding your abdominal space. And they are made for their specific purpose. If a membrane is permeable and thin and attaches to underlying connective tissues or epithelial tissues, this is a basement membrane. Okay, permeable means what? Can stuff go across it? Yes, we can permeate it. Okay, nutrients, gases can get across there. But a membrane in general is very thin. It covers either a cell, an organ, or some other structure in the body. So you'll have different membranes everywhere. We have nasal membranes, lung pleural membranes. Okay, we have brain membranes all over the body. Okay, so there's 3 different types of membranes. Cutaneous, which covers the body, so that's our skin, which is about up to 16% of our body weight. Then we have serous membranes, which line body cavities that do not open on the outside. So these are not the lining of our nose or our mouth or our ears or anywhere where there's an opening to the outside environment. It's for lubricating them and letting them not have as much friction when they're moving across each other. The mucous membranes, they protect the cells and line things that do open up to the outside world. So they have to be thicker and more tough. Why would the digestive tract be a mucous membrane? What do you think? It's an interior cavity. Why is it a mucous membrane?
Breaks down food.
It interacts with external environment. We put whatever we want, right? We're a little kid, pop a marble in there. That wasn't supposed to happen. It needs to handle whatever we smartly or not smartly put in there. Good. See, we're going to make the connections. Okay, so when we touch someone's skin, no, think I'm talking super early. I don't want to throw you. Let's wait a little bit on that one. Okay. Well, no, we'll do it now. Okay. So, when we touch someone's skin, what happens besides they know that there's something on them that's not part of their body, right? We have receptors, right? Our nerves tell our body, hey, and we interpret it. Is it a friendly touch? Is it a safe touch? Is it not a safe touch, right? Did I invite this touch or not? That's one key role, right? Did I tell you you can touch me or not? Or have I told you in the past you can touch me, right? Your family, they give you a hug, so they give you another hug next time they see you. Because if it's a stranger in the grocery store, who are you? Trying to steal my purse. Or my wallet, or my phone. Okay? So we always want our touch to be invited, safe, we get consent. We'll talk about that. So if, let's say, we haven't explained that where we're going to start on someone. It's their first massage ever. So we walk in the room and we get started. They may have an idea where they think you're going to start, and it might not be that place. What could happen just for a little bit inside their body? What's going to happen?
If I tense up or...
When we tense up, what does that mean? What chemical processes happen in our body? Muscles tense, so we're already not doing our job right.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a couple of weeks from now about your nervous system. So we activate the wrong nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system makes us on guard, right? So the type of touch also matters. If they ask for deep tissue and you come in, they're going to be like, you go harder right away. They don't understand that you're trying to warm up their tissues, and if you're going to be taught in here. Okay, get there. So if you never go deep enough for that person, the whole session, what happens? Do they relax? Do they get stress relief? They get irritated. Has anyone had a massage like that before? Where they didn't do what you asked them? You were very thorough. Okay? So we don't want to be that therapist, right? We want to be invited, give them a game plan idea what's going to happen so they're at ease, right? Before they go get scantily clad for you and then get under the sheets. They're going to be a little bit more comfortable because you told them what's coming. We all appreciate that, right? Normally, better than the surprise. So already you've set the tone for a good session before you even start touching, before you even come in to do your job. So there's things the whole time before and after the session we're going to cover in here to set it up for success. Set it up for, I want to come back. I want to give you a tip. I want more, longer next time, or more often. Okay? So we're going to give you all those tools because we want them to be relaxed so we can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the feel good, I'm not stressed, I'm safe, and I can get better. Mind, body connection, nervous system, digestive system plays a key role in that. You'll find out about that. All these things, okay? So, in the practical application box, we're not always going to touch on all of them, but you can look at them when you look at your chapters. This one talks about kind of a little early, but we're learning about the membranes. And as we go through the chapters, you're going to learn there's synovial membranes, there's synovial joints and fluids. Big moving joints are mostly synovial joints in humans. The fluid in there is to reduce friction for those movements. We as massage therapists can increase that during our session around those joints. So when they get up off the table, it creaks less, it pops less, it hurts less, and they think you're wonderful if you do it right. And we want to do it right. So I know we're starting out with all these scientific things, but there's a purpose for understanding all parts of the body. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, so on to connective tissue. This is the most abundant tissue in the body. Okay, we have the most connective tissue. It supplies support, helps us hold us together, helps to let us move substances within our body, and it protects us from other things from outside the body too. And there's going to be different matrices or structural build, the way things are built in the body for certain purposes. So talking about the matrix of connective tissue, it can be hot and cold affected, stretching affects it. And we already have that even without studying anything. We've seen that in sports or with ourselves, right? If we just go sprinting, we've never practiced, we don't stretch, we're probably going to hurt later or now right away sometimes, depending on the fitness level of our body, right? Okay, the matrix of connective tissue can be up to 90% ground substance. Ground substance is a transparent, very watery, thin, gel-like substance. It's good for lubricating, binding, and for help letting tissues move easier. So connective tissue is connecting things, usually, and those things are going to be moving. So it needs to be very fluid and be able to cushion some blows sometimes. So do you think our level of hydration has anything to do with how much ground substance is either has enough fluid or if it's getting a little thick? Right. So even simple things like hydration level is important and plays a role in how our body health state is. All right, so collagen fibers make up connective tissue. They don't stretch that much. They're very tough and strong, though. They help provide stability. And these are white fibers because they're white. They make up about 25% of the protein in our bodies. And because we lose some of that as we get older, that's why our structure changes a little bit as we age. Elastic fibers are very stretchable, but they're able to return back to the original state after being stretched. And these are called yellow fibers because, surprise, they are yellow when you look at them in the body. Now I mentioned that hot and cold, stretching and movement itself can affect connective tissue. Thixotropy, or thixotropic as it is at the bottom of 15, is when something gets more solid when it's colder and it gets more fluid when warmed up. Okay? Kind of split that definition between the two columns. Starts at the bottom of 15 and then goes over to the top of the second column. So if we don't warm up or stretch, connective tissue tends to get less flexible. And we see that in that's common knowledge, I think, without even knowing the word thixotrophy. If you don't stretch often, say you're a dancer, right? Professional. So you're limber, but then you retire and you get a computer job. Are you gonna 10 years later be doing back bends and flips around? Ooh, no, I lost it. Now, if you do yoga and you do your routine every day for an hour, yes, you can maintain it. So we can make choices to, slow down or improve the aging process, but it does take work. So applying it to massage, that's why we don't just want to start the massage with grabbing that muscle and squeezing as hard as we can. Okay, we want to warm it up so it's less painful for the client. They will get better stress relief that way if we go in gradually. But we're warming it up, which brings in fluid to repair the muscle and allow it to accept the change that's happening throughout time. And this allows more blood flow, better mobility, more flexibility on the tissue. So the fibers within the tissue are just more accepting. It's a more positive experience. Okay. Collagen fibers, they bind usually with hydrogen bonds, but if we don't use it, or if it's under constant pressure, then inflammation happens. And inflammation creates what is called an adhesion in the tissues. So they're usually joined in a certain way, and they're supposed to move a certain direction. So an adhesion happens, causes what we call a knot, right? Adhesion, it can't do its full movement. So now it's pulling, but it can't go smoothly, so it can only pull a little bit instead of sliding. And then the adjacent muscle over here can't do its job all the way either, because this one can't come all the way to it. So that's how we start out with one injury or not, and it's fine, it's not that bad, and then until the body goes, oh yes it is, woke you up at 2 a.m. in the morning, I had a spasm. You waited too long to take care of something that was a small issue. So through massage, we can slow down the formations of adhesions. We can help realign the fibers back into a close to normal state, reducing friction, making more optimal movement for the body. And so it's more closer to homeostasis and it's happier. The stress levels go down. Hopefully they're doing some fluid intake, maybe a little bit of stretching to go with it. And then everything can function more optimally. So that's in the ideal world. No, every client will not do things you suggest to help them out. Some will, and they'll see great results. Others will use you as a nice, large, expensive Band-Aid of types. But, you know, we take whatever we get, right? But it is a wonderful thing to see the progress that you can make with some people. Whiplash is some of my favorite work when you can't touch them hardly at all. They think they need surgery. Oh my gosh, I can't do nothing, I can't move, it hurts all the time. And then a few months later, well, where are we hurting today? I'm hurting nowhere. Awesome. We got range of motion? Yeah. Okay, good. And no pills? Awesome. Okay. So, I mean, that's great. That's what we live to see that and get that success. But adhesions happen on small and large scale, and you'll see, as we learn, trigger points and other things can happen as well. Okay, so connective tissue has cells that help to do the repair process as well. So that process has fibroblasts, which build up. Macrophages are mentioned. These are irregularly shaped cells. They're very large. They're usually in the bone marrow. That's where they originate. But they look for damaged cells or things that don't belong, and then they can dispose of them by ingesting them, digesting them, doing away with them. This is called phagocytosis, and you'll see this again later in your pathology book. And then we have mast cells, which are made in the bone marrow also, and adipose tissue, which are either brown or white fat in the dermis layer of the skin. Okay, lots of different types of connective tissue. Dense, regular, and irregular. Loose, also called areolar. Adipose. We have hyaline cartilage. This is important. That has a strong, solid matrix. It's very flexible and insensitive. You'll see this around some certain joints will have this type of cartilage. It provides good support with flexibility also. So having both is needed for certain functions. So the lungs, you have it, the nose has it. We don't want to break our nose when we're blowing it too hard because You're trying to get it cleared out. Nope, it's fat, it's strong and flexible. The trachea has it as well in the throat area. Then we have fibrocartilage. This has a lot of dense fibrous tissue, so it's more rigid than hyaline, and it provides flexibility and support, but it diffuses force so that it's not so specific for compressing on the bones, so it's usually around bones. And then, of course, elastic has the most flexibility, more flexibility than support. Connective tissue membranes, they are usually synovial membranes. Again, don't stress out over that page, just those couple highlights, okay? Hyaline and elastic. Muscle tissue, we're almost done. Okay, so we have skeletal muscle fibers, cardiac muscle fibers, and smooth, okay? Skeletal are striated, and they are voluntary in action. You can choose to move them or not. Cardiac are smaller, they're striated, they are involuntary. Yay, right? We don't have to say pump, heart, pump all day. Smooth muscle fibers are not voluntary, they're not striated. This is in our organs, our viscera, all of our automatic responses that we need to be done. Neuro or nervous tissue coordinates and regulates our body's activities. And then on the organ level, that's when we have multiple types of tissue that come together to provide a special function. And then on the system level, that's just groups of organs coming together to do the same function. And then on the organism level, the whole body, or in our body parts, working together to support the whole organism. So, we interact with the nervous system, try to help the body maintain balance or homeostasis in many different ways, whether we're assisting in a joint, a muscle, or just the nervous system in some cases, if you're helping someone with stress and anxiety levels. Okay, so we affect all of these systems when we work with people. Okay, so that's chapter 1 of Essentials. Does anyone need another point, any point clarified? Pretty good. And again, you have access to the PowerPoint on Moodle. Everybody got logged in, okay? All right. Okay. Do we need a 5-minute break or are we okay? Alright, we're gonna trail guide and then we'll have a break then. Okay, trail guide to the body, with the people climbing on the body parts. Alright, we're just doing the intro tonight.